Hi everyone, Jill from the North Woods. How you doing? Boy, if you're up here north where I am, it is super cold, but we are just about to hit 30 degrees. And I feel like spring fever is happening to me right now. If you live to the east of me, you are having snow, like an ice. And so I've seen some friends who had damage already. Hope you're all doing well and you're keeping safe. And apparently out west, they're having record heat, or at least in the southwest. And up north, where my job is, all the people I work with, they're having what they call radiation fog with actually no radiation. So a lot of wild weather out there, but like I said, I have spring fever. I got my batteries all charged. I'm ready to start bird watching again. And I just am excited about this because this is the first time I'm going to go out at this weight. I'm planning on getting back on my bike. I said that before I had problems fitting between the seat and the handlebars. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And I've been looking at getting back into my trail running plan. I want to be really careful about it because the last time I did trail running, I don't know this is what led to me hurting my ankles, but I did weigh a lot more. And so it was a lot more pounds on my ankles. And hoping now that I'm a lower weight, I can take up my running program again and do a little bit better, but not injure myself. That's the main goal. And now I'm starting to work on getting my cardio back together. I noticed that I really have no cardio resilience right now, and that's what I'm working on. And we'll talk about exercise, I believe, next week. I have a whole Notion database out there of like the schedule of things. But what actually is exercise? Should we exercise at a moderate rate? Should we take it easy so we exercise longer? Or do we do something harder? And we're going to talk about the various goals you have and what we're doing. My weight went up that same 2 pounds again. And my scale, which does a little bit more measurements on it, says I'm gaining muscle again. So I'm not going to freak out about it. I am going to talk to my doctor soon in a couple of weeks. And my goal is to drop down to 7.5 milligrams of Mounjaro. I still feel pretty dedicated to my plan to get off of Mounjaro at some point. And then if after the end of all of this, I'm still, at my 25 pounds and I still feel really dedicated to losing those 25 pounds, then maybe start back on after a gap. And hopefully, I was watching a fellow who believes in recycling, that you can go down and drop off and give it some time. And then when you come back, it works, he says, fairly close to how it worked when you first got started with Mounjaro. So not perfectly, but I think that's my plan. So we're going to see how 7.5 goes. And primarily, again, I think Mounjaro is still sucking some energy out of me. I still feel a little bit, I should feel better, right? I dropped 80 pounds. I should feel the best I've ever felt. And I still feel like I lack a lot of energy. I'm eating 1,400 calories a day. And so that's been, not a reason like I think it was in the past where maybe I wasn't eating enough and I really had to fight myself to eat. So still doing all right. And we're going to talk a little bit today about AI and how I'm using it to help me come up with this plan that I'm going off of. Now, for some of you, you might dread AI. And there's been some interesting news stories out there, which we're not going to talk about here because it's not a tech podcast. But, people generally get worried about AI. And I think the way that we keep AI useful in our lives, but not getting scary or anything like that, is we use it properly. And just in general, how do I use it? As a general thing, I use it as an assistant. So my friends and I were talking about this. My friend always asked me tech questions. How come I can't get this to work? How come this isn't working? Where do I change this to that, right? And she would always, message me and ask me that. And I would likewise message her, hey, could you edit my document? Could you make sure that the grammar is proper on this? I'm not a very good writer. And we use each other all the time to do that. And we both were talking about this. Neither of us are doing that anymore. We get to talk about other things when we get together. And the other nice thing about it is it's the kind of assistant that never gets tired of you, never thinks, oh, quit asking me. I got so much more, like stop bugging me kind of thing. You can ask it endless questions. And that's where I found it useful. I first got started doing it as part of my podcast because, again, not a really good writer. I'm more of a talker. And so I would do my podcast, I would get a transcript from it. And then from the transcript, I could create art, I could create show notes, I could create summaries for YouTube. And now I'm having it help me rebrand all my channels because I think my thumbnails were terrible and I'm trying to do a little bit better job. So AI has been very helpful to me in the podcasting world. It's been helpful to me in other places too. It actually told me sort of a really touching story about the kind of life my grandmother had by me plugging in where she lived and how old she was and what year this was. She told me, ChatGPT told me likely what her life was like, and that was kind of interesting as well. But when it comes to keeping off this weight, that becomes the real issue of how do we do that? How can we get there? And this is a tool that can help us quite a bit. And I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm actually going to show it on my screen. Oh, you don't like AI? No, AI is not for you. All right. Go ahead and put in your comments, your own feelings about AI and why it's not your favorite thing. So I appreciate you commenting on that. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm not using it in a fashion that could risk my health. Essentially, I'm using it as something to bounce ideas off of. Now, part of my maintenance plan, I won't say it exactly, I am following the maintenance plans that a lot of people are trying to do. I'm reading a lot about, on Reddit and watching videos of other people on maintenance, seeing what they're doing and sort of making it Jill-based. And I definitely wanted to come up with a plan, but what I'm actually doing is not having it come up with a plan for me. I'm having it adjust things for me. So I found it very helpful, and I'll talk about a little bit why I've been finding it helpful. Most of the AIs themselves are, there's a free level, and then there's a paid level for it too, so that you can use it to some degree as a free piece of it. I'm not getting comments about why the person doesn't like AI, so I hope you're still out there and watching, and I just didn't leave, but we'll be talking a little bit about what it is that I do with it, and maybe it would change your mind, or maybe you'd still feel like it's not something that's very useful to you. So right now we're in this place, where I lost weight, I'm maintaining the weight, and, I want to keep that momentum. I want to keep going, and I still want to eat healthy, and I don't really want to food track. I find it tedious. I'm not much of a tracker in real life when it comes to, I just sort of struggle with all the various like constantly entering my food and my water and how much I drank, but I still want to know that I'm in the ballpark of what am I supposed to be eating and doing. Am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough fiber? Am I drifting too far into the fats? Or, swinging back into more of a diet mindset instead of, sort of living life too. And so maintenance is a real thinking problem, I guess, and more, I think, than a willpower problem. And that's where ChatGPT has been very helpful to me. That's the one I picked. So just sort of as a general knowledge, Claude is very good at writing, and I hear it's very good at coding. I'm not a coder, so I can't judge that. Gemini is almost, because it's owned by Google, sounds like Google search, but with an AI factor in it. ChatGPT is very personable, but I mean, it also might be personable to a bad degree, because it will think every idea you have is a great idea. And you got to be really careful about that, because it's almost like, you see people on American Idol and they go, but my mom told me I'm a really good singer. Well, ChatGPT can be a little bit of a fan like that and tell you you're great when maybe you're not so great. Although I was a little surprised this day. I was having it help me with a strategy about coming up with video shorts for some of my other channels. And it said something rather striking. It said, I'm worried that you will get overwhelmed and you'll get a lot of burnout. Let's come up with a better plan, because I sort of gave it my plan, that would prevent you from burning out. And I thought, wow, what kind of search bot is concerned you may burn out? It's just such a weird thing there. So ChatGPT, for me, I feel, has been very useful about bouncing ideas off of. And I talked a little bit with the eye thing, that when I had optic nerve damage, according to my eye doctor, it kind of talked me down, because my thought of it is I'm going blind. And it gave me like, here's all the different ways that optic nerve damage can happen. You told me that you had diabetes. You told me, a little bit about your health. These are the most likely things, and it's most likely not permanently damaging. And then at the very end, gave me very good suggestions about the appointment, like bring my AirPods along because there's a lot of waiting. And, maybe you'll get stressed out. I thought that was such a good piece of advice. But then also said, here's some questions you should ask your doctor. And when I asked the retina specialist those questions, he says, wow, those are really good questions. And I said, to be honest with you, ChatGPT helped me to write those questions. And it actually, had I not asked those questions, I would have gotten home and thought, wait a minute, what about X, Y, and Z, right? And, it was good. It was good that I had those questions to ask because it helped more clearly define what the doctor meant, and then what the doctor meant was actually a good thing. So it allows me to really sort of evaluate everything. There's no judgment involved in it, and ask endless questions. I was just reading this quote from Tiago Forte, who writes about second brain stuff, like how to use your computer to basically use your computer as a second brain. We can't memorize everything. So how do you write a structured system so you can find your ideas again, essentially that. And he was talking about how he likes ChatGPT or AI, I think he uses Claude actually, for health-related issues, because right now we live in this era that when you talk to your doctor, you usually only can ask like 2 questions. You have a very limited time with your doctor. They don't have a lot of time to meet with you. And if they do meet with you a longer time, they charge you extra money, which maybe you cannot afford. And when you get a chance and you know that ChatGPT is not a doctor or Claude or any of them, and that you don't take what it tells you to take, you don't drop your dose because it tells you to drop your dose, you just ask it very specific questions about how you can improve your health. And you can ask endless questions without it getting patient, without it charging you more money. And, sometimes if you've ever gotten back to the doctor, you go, oh no, I should have thought about that. I should have asked this other question, and you totally forgot about it. It's still there, and you still can ask some questions. Again, not replacing your doctor. You can always send a message to your doctor if you have additional questions. So, like I said, I'm not logging food. I'm not obsessing over my macros at this moment, but I'm using ChatGPT to monitor them for me instead. And so I will ask it various questions that will look like something like, and we'll do a demonstration of this at the very end. Am I getting enough food? I'm trying to eat around 1,400 calories a day. And so all I do is either send it a picture or tell it what I ate. And because I'm not weighing it and I'm not typing it into an app, it's generalized. But that's all I care about. Generally, am I getting enough protein? Generally, am I getting enough fiber? Generally, am I either increasing my fats too heavily or too quickly? That kind of thing. And instead of saying, did I eat 1,400 calories a day? Now I'm like, am I in the ballpark? You know what calories, I told you before how many calories I want to eat. Am I in the ballpark? And it will say yes, or no. You need a few more calories, or think about this. And so protein is one of the easiest things to undereat. I know most of us have been trying to get a good amount of protein. It is a lot of protein that they're starting to suggest we need to eat. So if I get done with my food log in a particular end of the day, and it'll say something like, well, you're about 100 calories under what you hope to eat. You're missing about 60 grams of protein. And what it does, which is really quite remarkable, it will suggest something. Hey, here's a 100-calorie thing that might be a good protein for you, 9 o'clock at night, because I'm not really feeling like eating a meal, of course. And so it'll say, why don't you go have a hard-boiled egg? Or why don't you have a small cup, 2 ounces of nuts or something like that? And so it can actually show you like a good idea. And I said to it at one point, I feel like, that I've been swaying much more towards carbs. Is that true? And it looked over the whole month of me doing this type of reflection, food, typing in with it. And it said, you're really not. You're not, you're not swaying into too many calories. You haven't increased your calories, and you're still keeping up your things. Although I do notice you're eating a little bit more fats, and that's because you're eating too many nuts. So it gave me some good ideas about really where I'm going with it. Like I said, fiber is really another area where ChatGPT helps you think creatively about it. So I've been having low blood sugar in the morning, like I suggested, and I said to it, so I have a bird that lives downstairs. So this is my upstairs office. And I can't go down there at night because I wake him up and he needs like 12 hours of sleep. So I said, what can I do? What can I bring upstairs with me when I go, for recording and whatever it is I'm going to do that night to get a little bit more fiber? And it suggested a pear. A pear is something I could bring up here and eat it. And it's one of the higher fiber fruits out there. It's about 4 grams, so it's not a lot. And then suggested a couple of other things I could bring up here too. So it was just even like an idea of what doesn't have to be refrigerated, but would be a little add-on fiber for me at the end of the day. And that helps me just think of new things and helps me think about foods that I haven't honestly thought about. Putting flax in my yogurt or chia seeds, that kind of thing. So ChatGPT also helps me to like I said, sort of answer those questions about how I'm doing on my day-to-day diet. And again, eating enough. I'm now, because of the energy loss and because of the calories, I'm concerned. Am I, eating to set myself up for success later? Am I going to deplete my sugars? It's watching out. Like, it gave me some suggestions about how I can avoid some of these sugar crashes in the morning. And the reason I'm asking ChatGPT is because they're not dangerous. Sugar crashes, it's just a little low. So it's been helping me think about better ways that I can really eat the same things, but just in different order, so that I'm capable of, maintaining my goals essentially for that. So it, like I said, gives me low decision meals, or I need a quick meal. I have to leave in an hour. I need something that's quick protein. Can you just suggest 10 things for me that I could quickly make? So it comes up with some very quick ideas that I can use on the fly for eating. Or I'm at a restaurant, I can even take a screenshot of the menu and saying, my goals. What's the best thing on this menu that I could be eating right now? So it will actually help me with that. And I mentioned last week that I actually brought it, I don't bring it anywhere, it's on my phone, to the grocery store because I was looking for some meats that I could make into sandwiches. And I took a screenshot of the calories and the makeup of what was in this meat. And it said, well, to be honest with you, out of all the processed meats there are in the world, it has one preservative in it, and it's not a terrible one. It is not associated with any health issues. This is probably your best option. If you feel like you really need some sliced meat, this is not a bad one to pick from. And also thinking about what's filling. What is more filling instead of something that's going to fade on me right away. Helps me plan grocery lists, and then I can send those lists to my phone so that I can shop for it too. So it's been very helpful to me. Like I said, mostly just as an assistant, help me think about ideas that I have, and then what can I do that it's even a little bit better. Then it comes to exercise. I've been struggling with exercise, and it's not because I don't care, but it's just like, and that's probably how I got into this mess in the first place. I don't really like exercise. I am someone, like I said, who likes to knit and play on my computers and do podcasts, and I read a lot, and it's been a struggle for me. And so it's been thinking about different ways that I can get back into exercise. I have it message me every day and ask me, did you get your exercise in? And if I say yes or no, it records it. And then it's keeping track for me of what days do I get my exercise in and what days do I not get them in. Because I don't see myself as a lazy person, but instead I just need a little bit more accountability, a little bit more tracking. And like I said, it's not something I really want to do on an app. So exercise, sometimes when you're having troubles with exercise, tends to be a planning problem. So I have a plan of what I'm going to do to exercise today, and I have a little bit of accountability to do it. So having fewer decisions and maybe even safer options. So I, like I said, busted my ankles up a couple of years ago where I wounded the tendons in both of my ankles. I could have, if I had this back then, asked it, what are some good exercises I could continue to do that wouldn't impact my ankles and help me adapt to this problem that I'm having. So essentially, that's where it's going at. And like I said, it's really nice because it now knows my patterns. It knows that I'm struggling with this. It's helping me deal with what is possible as compared to the best possible scenario. Or, if it was my grandmother would yell at me. If it was my doctor, he'd be like, Joel, you have to really do this. Instead, it's helping me think of ways of getting around some of my own issues to get that particular piece right. And one of the most amazing things is that it can come up with a schedule. So I used it then to say, I go to the gym and I do body weight and resistance training 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Help me come up with a reasonable plan for Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays and Sundays. And it came up with a pretty reasonable plan for me. And so I've been working on that plan. And some of my plan includes Tabatas, or what they call, or something else called Norwegian 4x4s, which, like I said, I'll talk about next week. And some of it, is just not replicating what I'm doing with the body weight exercise, but giving me, building me up in other ways. So like I said, right now I feel like my cardio is really my biggest limitation. So you can say to it, help me build an exercise program, help me, I need something really realistic, or I'm super tired today, I just did not sleep well. Can you come up with an exercise plan for 15 minutes today, for a day where I'm just having a low energy day, didn't sleep well. And so it can reduce kind of your mental barrier and help you think outside the box, because I don't know if you're anything like me, what you may do is you might just say, oh, I'm just tired, I'm just not going to exercise today. And instead, you can come up with a different kind of a strategy. It helps you think sort of, what can I do when this sort of happens to me? And, like I said, you can ask it literally, what kind of exercise could I do that would be gentle on my ankles? Or how can I maintain a fitness program while I have an ankle injury? What can I do that it doesn't have impact? And so I was talking to it a little bit about, I have a treadmill and it's downstairs, and I'm thinking about hiring someone to move the treadmill upstairs into my gym over there. But honestly, I'm still a little bit worried about impact exercises. And I kind of bounced this idea, do I need a treadmill right now? And it said, you have an elliptical. An elliptical is going to be easier on your ankles. It's low impact or no impact. Why don't you save the impact exercises for when you're outside? And that way you just get rid of the treadmill instead of taking a very heavy, big piece of equipment and putting it in your gym and taking up a bunch of room. And I thought, that's kind of a reasonable thing. Do the impact stuff outside and do the non-impact stuff inside. And I thought that was a good strategy to have. So it's helping me go through these particular programs that are there. So it's making me more flexible instead of having a rigid plan. Because what I used to do is just sort of have a plan and stick with it. Low energy, top energy, or injured, not injured. And so I said, it's kind of helping me in that direction. So it's a way also too, where you can ask it, how do I escalate? Like, I've been doing this and this and this. What can I do to make this exercise not harder, but more useful, to me? And so it can come up with that kind of a plan for you. And in the end, like I said, this has been something that I've been doing. And like I said, it can remind me, it can ask me if I exercise, and I can go ahead and put in food tracking, which means I'm not using an app, I'm not paying for another fee. I am just, telling it what I did, and it's keeping track for me, and then looking at trends and looking how I can do this. So let's take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this works out really well. Is that if you look at my various chats here, if you look at my different ChatGPT kinds of questions we can ask, essentially what it looks like is I can say, today I ate eggs and toast for breakfast. Toast. And for lunch, And so then I could say for dinner I had, well, let's just make it something bad, or something not bad, but let's say I said, oh, then I had noodles and butter and strawberries. Okay, so I ate that. And so I say, could you, how I'm doing on my macros. So you can go in through here now and it'll take a look. And so it'll basically go through and look at my day. This is not my day. I'm just making up this day. But essentially, it says, okay, you got 20 grams of protein for breakfast, but also 21 grams of fats and this amount of carbs and forgot the fiber. Okay, so we can go back and revise this. Okay, so cleanest, more thing. And then you see now I concentrated my carbs. I ate a lot of butter with no volume, and so then it kind of gives me an estimate of where I am with my calories, my protein, my carbs. Then it can say, suggestions for me here. So 56 grams of protein wasn't enough, and it was a pretty light day. It's okay to have a light day, but if I'm going to maintain my muscle, I need to look at it a little bit more. So you can see it's looking at the day and it's kind of giving me advice about that. And let's take a look at dinner because, I clustered all my carbs at night. And if that happens, I might start getting hungry at night. I might start having sugar problems because we burn through carbs pretty quickly. And so it might cause swings for myself. And so essentially, even with the keto toast, it wasn't very good. And so you see now some steps for improvement. So add a protein for dinner. If I would have added something, maybe reduced the noodles to like an ounce or two and then made the dinner something else, a pork roast or, something else that I could do. Swap in half the noodles for vegetables. And so it's giving me some good ideas that are basically right there. And I say, well, it's, you forgot the fiber. So now I'll go back and it'll reanalyze it and go ahead and put the fiber in there, so it'll say, here's my estimates of fiber, and it can give me a rundown of that. Okay, great. So it's not been much in the way of fiber right now too. So I can say, well, I okay, got one meal left. That's going to be my evening snack. What could I do that would just sort of save the day? I already ate this meal. I already ate my, noodles for dinner. And so what could I do to do a little bit better? And so it's, like have some yogurt, have some cottage cheese, throw in some eggs or, you can add a little, something else to here. So it's giving me advice that is realistic for me. And I think that it can give me ideas. Maybe I didn't think about that or I didn't think about this. And so that's what I'm really using it for, is to help me really kind of think and plan out essentially what my my eating looks like. And so like I said, it's not food tracking and it's not costing me the subscription anymore. I'm also not getting my nutrients and macro or my micronutrients, how much vitamin E am I getting or something like that. But saying kindly, if you ate this meal, you might be, feeling some things later today that are not beneficial to you, and here's some changes that you could make. So then let's go on and talk a little bit about the exercise too. Is I can say, well, I haven't. It's a bit late. I went hiking yesterday because I have spring fever. So what could I do to make today work a little bit better? And so in that particular case, it says, okay, you went hiking, it's not nothing. Okay, thanks. But the idea is that it's important to keep the habit alive, right? So not only is it looking for a good exercise for me to do just in the whole scheme of things, It's also saying you have a habit going. Keep that habit going, but also don't go too far because you went hiking yesterday. You did, that was good. And we don't want to stir up the ankle thing. It remembers everything. It's probably going to talk to me about my ankle problems for a long while now. But okay, why don't you do this? Think about this. Try the elliptical or the exercise bike, 10 to 15 minutes, easy pace, and kind of flesh out some of the soreness. Or other ideas for that. Actually, I'm going to do an Apple Fitness Pilates exercise when I get done with this. So, but like I said, it can kind of give me an idea about this. I think you can even tell it, I have an Apple Fitness Plus, or you can tell it whatever equipment you have. And, it might be able to then give me some advice about some good Apple Fitness exercises. Try yoga, try Pilates. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So, like I said, it's kind of just like having an assistant. I don't think, there's a good and bad to it. I mean, there's certainly things that it does that's a mistake. That it can make mistakes, that it can give people poor advice. You hear people who take medical advice like, what medication to take and what supplements that ended up being dangerous for people. So you have to be careful, and you can ask your doctor. Like I said, most of our medical record software has a chat program that you can send a message to your clinic and ask them a question. But these are all things that if it was wrong, it wouldn't hurt me. Right? If it was wrong about doing yoga, well, oh well, I wasted an exercise. So in the end, the things I'm asking it are more like, I just have something to bounce ideas off of. And that's what's been very helpful to me, whether it comes to eating, whether it comes to maintenance. I can even talk about, questions like this. As you know, I am lowering my dose of Mounjaro. And you say, oh no, this is a medical question, right? So what are some considerations for me to go down 7.5 milligrams in the middle of February? So what are some considerations for me? Should do that? So, what do I have to think about? What will happen if I go down in dose? So my appetite might return. So far, it has not returned. The satiety may not feel as good. And blood sugar swings can become more noticeable. So what's interesting about that is right now, I feel like my blood sugar is being suppressed, maybe a little too much by Mounjaro, which is primarily why I'm thinking about doing that, going up to see if it stabilizes and becomes a little bit more normal in there. So essentially, so here's the idea. Don't change everything at once. Keep meal timing and, things consistent. Make protein my stabilizer, that's what we're doing there. And make more mental adjustments. Remember, am I eating now because I'm hungry? Am I feeling hungry because it is just my body trying to get back to the weight it used to be? Because it's going to, for a couple of years, want to do that. And, reframe the hunger. So again, don't sit there and say, oh no, the drug, it's not working. I'm losing control. Things are out of control. Just say, you know what? Being hungry right now is a really normal part of this because my body is freaking out and it wants to gain more weight. So again, it's like I said, not a medical thing, but it gives me some things to talk about. So I can say I am seeing my doctor in 2 weeks. What should I ask? What should I ask him? And so, like I said, it can give you some really great ideas about what I can talk to my doctor about. So if I step down, what are the signs I can tell that this dose is not working for me? What are, some success criteria? What should I expect? How long should I give it before I decide to move down, right? And so this is really, like I said, just gives me food for thought. I live here in this house by myself, and like I said, I have a friend I bounce a lot of ideas off of, but being able to ask an endless amount of questions has been very helpful for me to just get some ideas. And the other thing, too, is that I get ideas from it. I remember asking it about these 2 pounds that are going up and down, and it said, well, it's physically impossible for you to gain and lose 10 pounds day by day. It has to be water weight. Fat takes a long amount of time for that to happen. And besides, your glycogen scores or sources are shifting because you went down in dose. And I was like, glycogen? Wait, what is this word? So now I can go off of ChatGPT and actually go to reliable resources to find out more about what glycogen is doing to me and whether or not it is going to cause future problems for me. So I wanted to just show you that. I hope that kind of helps in ways. Like I said, it's not there to replace your doctor. Please talk to your doctor. I'm still not a great fan of people sort of not dealing with a doctor when they go on these drugs, because right now with the compounding, you can do almost anything without a doctor's advice. And it worries me. I mean, it really kind of does. But I also understand that the doctor costs money. So, in the end, this gives you a low-cost way. Like I said, there are free levels, there are paid levels, and almost all of them are a little bit different. I was talking about at the beginning. ChatGPT is a little bit more friendly. You notice how sort of friendly it is. Gemini is a little bit more like Google, but AI. Claude is very good at writing, especially long form, and coding, which I don't do. There is Grok, which is, it's not brutal. It's very honest. So if you need a devil's advocate, Grok is very good at that. It is very good at challenging your ideas, to say, are you really thinking this out? And then Perplexity. So Perplexity is kind of a unique character in all of this. It is created for the sole purpose of having valid resources. So everything it says is backed up, and ChatGPT is getting closer to that too. Here's the link. Here's where I found this information. This is where I got it from. Read it in this journal. Read it in this medical journal. Read it on this medical website. And so it is trying to source itself from very reliable sources to give you a better opinion. So right now, whenever ChatGPT tells me something like this, like if I look at this and I say, oh no, what's vitamin B12 going to do with, this? I can go to Perplexity and sort of feel like I'm getting a little bit more of a scientific answer than maybe what I get from ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is catching up and getting much, much better. So I hope that helps. If anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat channel. You can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. If you really hated AI, like I saw someone gave the thumbs down because of maybe even talking about AI, love to hear about it. You can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Be aware that I had some sort of a domain issue for the last 2 weeks that I didn't know, and it wasn't routing my emails to me. So that is now fixed. But please email me or put a comment down here. I'd love to see, are you using AI as part of you trying to just get new ideas? I mean, it's not just new ideas about health. It's new ideas about how my thumbnails should look on my podcast. What's a different way that I use this room? I gave it all the furniture I have, and it helped me redecorate my room. And I found a hairstyle I liked, and I kept having it put different hairstyles on me to see what it would look like. And I found a hairstyle I like, and now I'm growing out my hair. So you can do all sorts of silly things with AI, and it's just really helpful. But I appreciate you being out there. Please have a wonderful day.